All right, strap in everyone because today we're going deep on AWS Data Engineers.
Oh yeah, this is going to be good.
We've got this really cool audio clip as our guide,
Hmm.
and it really paints a picture of what these data wizards actually do all day.
Yeah, it's way more dynamic than people think.
Right, like we all know data is important, everything runs on it these days,
Everything.
but I bet most folks have no idea what goes into making it usable.
It's a whole hidden world, honestly.
So let's lift the curtain, shall we? Our clip starts off with a team stand-up meeting, first thing in the morning.
Yeah, got to get everyone on the same page.
Classic, right? Coffee in hand, whiteboard full of scribbles.
Well, maybe virtual whiteboards these days, but the idea is the same.
That's true. So much work is remote now.
Yeah, but that face-to-face, even if it's through a screen, is still crucial.
For sure. So what are they actually talking about in these meetings?
It's all about alignment, making sure everyone knows what they're tackling that day.
Okay, so like setting priorities, figuring out who's doing what.
Exactly, and flagging any potential roadblocks early on.
Oh, that's smart, so you don't end up with a bottleneck later.
Right, because in the data world, one delay can cascade through the whole system.
Oof, yeah. I can see how that would be a nightmare.
It can be. And they actually use this term sprint planning.
Sprint planning, okay. Kind of a sporty term for data wrangling.
Well, it's this agile methodology, breaking work into smaller, manageable chunks they call sprints.
Ah, okay. So like instead of one giant project, it's a series of sprints.
Precisely, keeps everyone focused and on track.
Makes sense, especially when you're dealing with these massive data sets.
Right, things could easily spiral out of control otherwise.
So teams all aligned, what's next on our data engineers' to-do list?
System health check, it's like their daily checkup.
Like making sure all the servers are humming along?
Kind of, but it's more nuanced than that. They're looking at the data pipelines, which is how data moves through the system.
Okay, I've heard that term before, but explain it like I'm five, please.
Sure, imagine like dot plumbing, but for data.
Okay, I can picture that.
So you've got data coming from all these different sources.
Like databases, websites, apps, all that stuff.
Yep, and the pipelines carry it to where it needs to be processed, stored, analyzed.
Gotcha, so our data engineer is making sure there are no leaks in the data pipes.
Exactly. They're using tools like CloudWatch, S3, Redshift, even Kinesis.
Whoa, that's a lot of tools. Are those all AWS specific?
They are, and they let our engineer monitor everything in real time.
Oh, wow, so they can see any issues popping up right away.
Yep, it's all about being proactive, preventing problems before they cause major headaches.
Sounds like a job for someone who loves puzzles and hates surprises.
You nailed it. It takes a keen eye for detail to catch those subtle red flags.
So they've got the data flowing smoothly. What happens to it next?
That's when they shift gears into data ingestion.
Ingestion, like they're eating the data.
Aha, not quite, but it is about gathering it all up from those various sources.
Right, like all those databases, APIs, cloud storage we talked about?
Exactly. It's all raw data at this point, needs a lot of prep before it's useful.
Okay, so what kind of prep are we talking about?
It's called ETL, extracting, transforming, loading.
ETL, got it. .so, break that down for me.
First, they extract the data, pull it from wherever it's living.
Makes sense, gotta get your ingredients before you can cook.
Then comes the transformation. This is where the real magic happens.
Ooh, lay it on me.
They're cleaning the data, making sure the formats are consistent, getting rid of duplicates.
Oh, so it's not just about moving data, it's about making it usable.
Exactly. And then finally, they load it into its destination, like a data lake or warehouse.
Gotcha, so it's ready for analysis, reporting, all that good stuff.
Precisely. And AWS gives them these awesome tools to help with this, like Lambda, Glue, step functions.
Hold up, Blue. Is that like digital superglue holding the data together?
Haha, kind of. It's this powerful service for automating a lot of the ETL process.
So our data engineer gets to be a bit of a code-slinging automation guru.
For sure, they're writing scripts, building workflows, making the data dance to their tune.
This is way more complex than I ever imagined.
It really is. And we're just scratching the surface here.
Well, on that note, I think we need to take a quick break.
Sounds good. Let's give everyone a moment to process all this data.
We'll be right back with more insights into the world of AWS Data Engineers.
Okay, so before the break, we were talking about ETL and all the heavy lifting that goes into prepping data.
Right, it's like taking this raw, chaotic data and turning it into something useful.
Exactly. And one of the biggest challenges in that process is data cleaning.
Ah, data cleaning. I've had my fair share of spreadsheet nightmares. I can only imagine the scale these folks are dealing with.
It's a whole other level, honestly.
So what kind of mess are they cleaning up? Like, what are the common culprits?
Well, you've got your usual suspects, duplicate entries, missing values, inconsistent formats.
Oh yeah, I've battled those in my spreadsheets too. It's so frustrating.
And when you're dealing with terabytes of data, those little inconsistencies can snowball into major problems.
So it's not just about making the data neat, it's about ensuring its accuracy for analysis, right?
Absolutely. Garbage in, garbage out, as they say.
100%. So how do they tackle this data cleansing challenge? More fancy AWS tools.
Well, glue comes into play again here.
Glue, right. We heard that one before. It's like the duct tape of the data world.
Haha, kind of. It's super versatile, can handle all sorts of data formats, even the messy, unstructured stuff.
Okay, so like data from social media, sensor logs, stuff that's not neatly organized in a table.
Exactly. Glue can wrangle it all, clean it up, and get it ready for analysis.
Wow, that's impressive. So it's like a one-stop shop for data cleansing.
Pretty much. And it integrates seamlessly with other AWS services, which makes our data engineers' life a lot easier.
Right, because in the cloud, it's all about connecting these different services together.
Exactly. And, speaking of challenges, it's not all smooth sailing in the data world. Our AWS data engineers are constantly troubleshooting technical hurdles.
Now, that's what I'm talking about. Let's get into the nitty-gritty. What kind of fires are they putting out on a typical day?
Well, picture this. A data pipeline suddenly grinds to a halt. Data isn't flowing where it needs to. Our engineer needs to jump in, figure out what went wrong, and get things back up and running fast.
Oh no, it's like a digital heart attack.
It can feel that way. It's like being a digital detective. They might be combing through log files, checking configurations, or even calling in reinforcements from other teams.
It sounds intense. It's more than just knowing the tools. It's about understanding the whole system and how everything connects.
You're exactly right. For example, they might need to dive deep into IAM permissions. Now, this is a critical part of AWS, but it can get tricky.
IAM permissions. Okay, remind me what that's all about.
It's basically like setting the rules for who can access what data, making sure the right people have the right permissions and no one else.
So it's not just about making sure the data flows, it's about making sure it flows to the right places and stays secure.
Precisely. And then there's the challenge of performance. Let's say a data analyst is running a query on Redshift, which is a powerful data warehouse service from AWS. If that query takes forever to run, it's going to bottleneck their whole workflow.
I feel like I'm getting a glimpse behind the curtain here, all the stuff that users never see but totally rely on.
That's exactly it. And a big part of that is optimization. They might need to tweak that Redshift query, add indexes to the database, or even adjust the EC2 instances that are powering everything.
Hold on, EC2 instances. I'm vaguely familiar with the term, but could you break that down a bit for our listeners who might not be cloud experts?
Of course. Think of an EC2 instance as a virtual server in the cloud. It's like renting a computer on demand, and you can choose from all sorts of configurations based on what you need to do.
Okay, starting to get it.
Our data engineers are constantly fine-tuning these instances to make sure they're providing the right amount of power for the job and that they're not costing an arm and a leg.
Ah, so it's a balancing act between getting the best performance and keeping the cloud bill under control.
Exactly. It's a constant challenge, especially as data volumes continue to grow. And it's just one example of the many technical hurdles our AWS data engineers face on a daily basis.
Okay, so we've got data flowing, data clean, data secure, but who's actually using this pristine data?
That's where the collaboration comes in. They work closely with data scientists and data analysts.
So they're not just lone wolves coding in the dark.
Not at all. It's a team effort. They need to make sure the data is accessible and usable for the folks who are going to extract insights from it.
So it's not just about getting the data in, it's about making it accessible and usable for the people who are going to extract insights from it.
You got it. They might be collaborating on designing a data warehouse, which is like this massive, well-organized library of data.
Gotcha. So like a central repository where all the clean, prepped data lives.
Exactly. Or they might be optimizing how the data is structured to make those analyst queries run lightning fast.
Okay, so they're laying the groundwork for the data analysts to come in and do their magic.
Precisely. And they're providing them with the right tools for the job, things like Amazon Athena and Redshift.
Now those names ring a bell. What makes those tools so vital for data analysts?
Athena is like a super fast query engine. It lets analysts run queries on massive amounts of data stored in S3 without having to set up complex infrastructure.
So it's all about speed and agility. I like it.
Exactly. And then there's Redshift, which we touched on earlier. It's a fully managed data warehouse service that's optimized for complex queries and large data sets.
So if Athena is like the sprinter, Redshift is the marathon runner.
That's a great way to put it. When analysts need to dig deep and uncover those hidden patterns, Redshift is their go-to tool.
Gotcha. So our AWS data engineer is setting up the buffet, making sure the ingredients are fresh, and providing the right utensils for the data feast.
That's a perfect analogy. And, it's not just about data analysts. Our data engineers are also playing a critical role in supporting another hot topic these days, machine learning.
Oh, yes. Machine learning, it's everywhere. From those yearly accurate recommendations on your favorite streaming service to self-driving cars navigating city streets. I have to admit, it feels a bit like magic sometimes.
It does, but behind that magic is a lot of hard work from folks like our AWS data engineers. They're the ones who are preparing the data that feeds these powerful algorithms. Think of them as the trainers for the machine learning athletes.
Okay, so they're not building the algorithms themselves, but they're making sure those algorithms have the right fuel to learn and make predictions.
Exactly. For example, let's say a data scientist is building a model to predict customer churn. Our data engineer would make sure that the historical customer data is clean, properly formatted, and organized in a way that the machine learning algorithm can understand.
So it's a lot more than just handing over a spreadsheet and saying, good luck. They're actively shaping the data to make it work for those complex machine learning tasks.
You got it. And luckily, AWS offers a fantastic platform for machine learning called SageMaker. It's where data scientists build, train, and deploy their models.
So it's like a one-stop shop for all things machine learning. I can see why that would be appealing to data scientists.
It is, and the beauty of it is that it integrates seamlessly with all those other AWS services we've been talking about, so our data engineer can easily connect the data they've prepared to SageMaker, allowing those models to hit the ground running.
It's all starting to click now, from pipelines to cleaning to setting up for analysis and machine learning. They're truly laying the foundation for all the exciting data work that comes after.
It really is foundational. And, with all this data flying around, one topic that can't be ignored is security.
Oh, yes. Data security, that's something we hear about in the news all the time, from data breaches to privacy concerns. It's clearly top of mind for everyone.
And it's a huge responsibility for our AWS data engineers. They're on the front lines, making sure that all this data is protected and compliant with all the relevant regulations.
Regulations. Now, those can be a bit intimidating. Can you give us a quick overview of what they're dealing with?
You've got GDPR, which is all about protecting the personal data of European citizens. Then there's HIPAA in the US, which focuses on safeguarding sensitive health information. And this is just a couple of examples. Depending on the industry and the type of data they're handling, our engineers might need to comply with a whole host of other rules and regulations.
So it's not just about building cool data systems, it's about building them responsibly and ethically.
Exactly. And luckily, AWS provides them with a whole arsenal of tools and features to help them achieve that.
Okay, so it's like a digital security system built right into the cloud. What are some of the key elements they're working with?
One of the most fundamental tools is AWS IAM, which stands for Identity and Access Management. It's basically like setting up digital bouncers at the door of your data, controlling who gets in and what they can do.
So it's like a granular level of control, almost like setting different levels of security clearance for different users.
That's a great way to think about it. And then, of course, there's encryption. Think of it like putting your data in a lockbox that only authorized users have the key to. AWS provides various encryption services, and our data engineers use these to protect data both in transit and at rest.
So even if someone managed to sneak past the digital bouncer, they wouldn't be able to make sense of the data without the key.
Exactly. It adds another layer of protection. And of course, they're constantly monitoring for any suspicious activity, conducting audits to make sure everything is running as it should, and staying up to date on the latest security best practices.
It sounds like they're the guardians of the data galaxy, protecting it from all sorts of threats. It's a huge responsibility.
It is. And, it's not all about the adrenaline-pumping moments of fighting off cyber attacks. There's also the less glamorous but equally important task of documentation.
Documentation. Now, that doesn't sound quite as exciting as battling digital villains, but I'm sure it's crucial for keeping things running smoothly.
It's absolutely essential. Our data engineers spend a good chunk of their time meticulously documenting their work.
Okay, so what are they actually documenting?
They're creating records of their data pipelines, scripts, security protocols, all those intricate details that make the system work.
So it's like leaving a trail of breadcrumbs for anyone who needs to understand or maintain these complex systems in the future.
That's a great way to put it. And it's not just about making things easier for their future selves or their colleagues. Good documentation is also crucial for compliance with those regulations we talked about earlier.
Ah, so it's not just good practice, it's often a requirement.
Exactly. And alongside documentation, they're also busy creating reports for stakeholders. They need to communicate their progress, highlight any challenges they've overcome, and show how their work is contributing to the overall goals of the organization.
So they're translating all that technical complexity into something that stakeholders can understand and appreciate. It sounds like a valuable communication skill.
It is, and luckily, AWS provides a fantastic tool called QuickSight to help with that. It's a business intelligence tool that allows them to create interactive dashboards and reports that really bring the data to life.
So it's not just about crunching numbers, it's about telling the story behind those numbers and showing how they impact the business.
Exactly. And, speaking of stories, I think it's important to remember that behind all these technical details are real people. Our AWS data engineers are passionate about data, they love solving problems, and they're constantly learning and growing.
It's fascinating to me how much this role combines those technical skills with a human element. It's not just about coding, it's about communication, problem solving, and a real drive to make things work.
It really is. And speaking of learning and growing, one of the most exciting things about this field is that it's constantly evolving. AWS is always rolling out new features and services, and our data engineers need to stay ahead of the curve.
I bet that keeps things interesting. No chance of getting bored in the job, is there? But seriously, how do they keep up with all the latest and greatest in the AWS universe?
Well, certifications are a big one. They can earn certifications in specific AWS services, proving their expertise and showing potential employers that they're serious about their craft.
I imagine those certifications are highly sought after in the tech world.
They are. They're like a stamp of approval from AWS itself. But it goes beyond just checking boxes. Our data engineers are genuinely curious folks. They're always tinkering, experimenting with new tools and features, and finding creative ways to push the boundaries of what's possible.
So it's that combination of structured learning through certifications and that hands-on, self-driven exploration that really makes them excel.
It's a powerful combination. And, it's not just about individual growth. They're also very active in the AWS community. They participate in online forums, share their knowledge, attend conferences, and learn from each other's experiences.
It's fantastic how that collaborative spirit runs through the tech world. It's not just about competition. It's about sharing knowledge and lifting each other up.
It really is. And it's that collaborative spirit that drives innovation in the AWS ecosystem. Now, shifting gears for a moment, I think it's time we address the elephant in the room, the challenges.
Okay, let's get real. We've talked about a lot of exciting aspects of this job, but I'm sure it's not all sunshine and rainbows. What are some of the things that keep AWS data engineers up at night?
Well, one of the biggest challenges they face is dealing with the sheer volume and variety of data. We're generating more data than ever before, and it's coming from all sorts of sources, structured and unstructured, real-time and batch.
So it's not just about building a data pipeline. It's about building a pipeline that can handle a tsunami of data from every direction.
Exactly. And that data tsunami isn't slowing down anytime soon. They need to build systems that are scalable, resilient, and adaptable.
I imagine that requires some serious architectural chops. They're not just writing code, they're designing systems that can handle the unknown.
You got it. And then there's the constant pressure to keep costs under control. Cloud computing is incredibly powerful, but it can also get expensive if you're not careful.
So they need to be mindful of those cloud bills. I guess those EC2 instances don't run on good vibes alone.
Definitely not. They're constantly optimizing their workflows, looking for ways to do more with less, and making sure they're not overspending on resources.
It sounds like a delicate balance.
It is. And then, of course, there's the ever-present challenge of security. With data breaches becoming more common, our data engineers need to be hyper-vigilant about protecting the data they're responsible for.
So they're not just building systems, they're constantly defending those systems from attack. It sounds like a high-pressure environment.
It can be. They need to stay up to date on the latest security threats, implement best practices, and be prepared to respond quickly if something goes wrong.
I'm starting to understand why you called them the unsung heroes earlier. They're doing this vital work behind the scenes, often without a lot of fanfare.
They are. And, even though there are challenges, there's also an incredible sense of satisfaction that comes from this work.
I can imagine. What's it like to know that you're playing a key role in building the data infrastructure that powers so much of our world?
It's amazing. There's a real sense of accomplishment that comes from solving complex problems, building systems that work, and knowing that your efforts are making a tangible impact.
It's like being a digital architect, shaping the information landscape of our world.
It's a great way to put it. Now, let's shift gears a bit and talk about the human side of data engineering.
Yes. We've focused a lot on the technical side, but I'm sure it's not all about algorithms and code. What are some of those soft skills that are crucial for success in this role?
Communication is at the top of the list. Our data engineers need to be able to explain complex technical concepts to non-technical audiences. They're collaborating with data scientists, analysts, business stakeholders, people who may not have a deep understanding of the technical details.
So it's not enough to be a coding wizard. They also need to be able to translate those technical concepts into plain English.
Exactly. They need to be clear, concise, and patient, especially when explaining things to folks who are coming from a different perspective. And it's not just about speaking, it's also about listening. They need to be able to understand the needs of their users, gather requirements, and translate those requirements into technical solutions.
So it's almost like being a data therapist, listening to the needs of their data patients and prescribing the right solutions.
That's a great analogy. And then, of course, there's collaboration. We've touched on this throughout our conversation, but it's worth emphasizing again. AWS data engineers are rarely working in isolation. They're part of a team, and they need to be able to work effectively with others, share ideas, resolve conflicts, and celebrate successes together.
So those classic teamwork skills are just as important in the data world as they are anywhere else.
Absolutely. They need to be good communicators, active listeners, respectful of different viewpoints, and willing to compromise.
It's all about building those positive relationships, both within their team and with other stakeholders across the organization.
You got it. And it's not just about working with people, it's also about working with data ethically and responsibly.
Yes, we touched on data privacy and regulations earlier, but it seems like this goes beyond just following the rules. It's about making conscious decisions about how data is used and protecting it from misuse.
Exactly. Our data engineers are becoming increasingly aware of the ethical implications of their work. They're asking tough questions about how data can be used to benefit society while minimizing potential harm.
So they're not just building data systems, they're shaping the future of how we use and interact with data.
That's right. They're thinking about things like bias in algorithms, data privacy, and the potential impact of their work on different communities.
It's inspiring to see how this awareness is growing within the tech world. It's not just about building cool things, it's about building things that are ethical, responsible, and beneficial to society.
It really is, and it's something that's top of mind for many AWS data engineers today. They're not just coders, they're digital citizens, and they're taking that responsibility seriously.
That's fantastic. It gives me hope for the future of data.
Me too. Now let's zoom out a bit and talk about the bigger picture.
Okay, big picture thinking. What trends are you seeing that will shape the work of AWS data engineers in the years to come? What's on the horizon for this dynamic field?
Well, one of the most exciting trends is the rise of real-time data processing.
Real time. So we're talking about analyzing data as it's generated on the fly. I can see how that would be valuable, but it sounds like a whole new level of complexity.
It is. We're moving away from batch processing, where data is collected and analyzed in chunks, towards systems that can ingest and process data continuously in real time.
What's driving this shift towards real time?
It's all about speed and responsiveness. Businesses want to make decisions faster, react to changes in the market more quickly, and personalize experiences for their customers in real time.
So we're talking about everything from fraud detection to dynamic pricing to personalized recommendations that adapt on the fly. The possibilities seem endless.
They are. And for AWS data engineers, this means mastering tools like Kinesis and Kafka, which are designed for handling those high-velocity data streams.
So it's yet another set of tools to add to their already impressive arsenal. They're going to need a bigger digital toolbox. But seriously, it sounds like an exciting challenge.
It is, and it's not just about the tools. They also need to think differently about how they design and architect their systems. These real-time systems need to be scalable, resilient, and able to handle the unpredictable nature of live data streams.
So they're not just building data pipelines, they're building data highways that can handle a constant flow of traffic.
Exactly, and they need to make sure those highways are well-maintained, secure, and able to adapt to changing conditions.
I'm sensing a theme here, adaptability.
You're right. In this fast-paced world of data, the ability to learn, adapt, and evolve is crucial for success. And speaking of evolving, another trend that's reshaping the landscape is the growing convergence of data engineering and machine learning.
We touched on this earlier with data engineers preparing data for machine learning models, but it sounds like this partnership is about to get a whole lot closer.
It is. As machine learning becomes more sophisticated and integrated into everyday business processes, the lines between data engineering and data science are blurring.
So are we talking about data engineers becoming part-time data scientists or data scientists learning how to code pipelines?
It's more of a collaborative dance. Data engineers are becoming more involved in the deployment, monitoring, and management of machine learning models. They're building pipelines to feed data into those models, optimizing infrastructure to support their training, and ensuring that the models are running smoothly and efficiently in production.
So they're not just handing off the data, they're becoming active participants in the machine learning process.
Exactly. And they're bringing their unique skills in data management, infrastructure optimization, and security to the table.
It's a fascinating evolution. It seems like the role of the AWS data engineer is expanding in all sorts of exciting directions.
It is, and as data continues to grow in importance, I think we'll see even more convergence and collaboration between different disciplines.
It's like a melting pot of data expertise, with everyone bringing their unique skills and perspectives to the table.
That's a great way to put it. And it's what makes this field so dynamic and rewarding. Now, shifting gears one last time, I think it's time to talk about the future, not just for the field, but for those who might be considering a career in it.
Okay, career advice time. What would you say to someone who's intrigued by the world of AWS data engineering, but might be feeling a bit intimidated by all the complexities we've discussed?
First of all, don't be intimidated. Everyone starts somewhere, and there are so many resources available to help you learn and grow.
So where should they start? What's the first step on this data-driven adventure?
Well, a great place to begin is by exploring the AWS free tier. It's a fantastic way to get hands-on experience with AWS services without breaking the bank. You can spin up EC2 instances, experiment with S3 storage, play around with Lambda functions all for free.
So it's like a digital sandbox where they can try things out and learn by doing. I love that approach. What else?
There are tons of online courses, tutorials, and documentation available. AWS offers a wealth of educational resources, and there are many third-party providers out there as well.
So it's a combination of hands-on experimentation and structured learning.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of community. Join online forums, connect with other AWS enthusiasts, and learn from their experiences. There's a whole world of support out there.
I love that. It's not just about technical skills, it's about building connections and learning from others.
It's a crucial part of the journey. And, if you're feeling really ambitious, consider pursuing an AWS certification.
We talked about those earlier. They're a great way to validate your skills and show potential employers that you're serious about AWS.
They are. They can definitely give you a competitive edge in the job market. But even if you're not ready to jump into a certification program, just start exploring, experimenting, and learning.
I love that advice. It's all about taking that first step and embracing the journey.
Exactly. And, as you delve deeper into the world of AWS data engineering, I think you'll discover that it's not just about the technology, it's about the impact you can have.
Impact. Okay, tell me more.
You're helping to build the infrastructure that powers so much of our world, from personalized recommendations to life-saving medical breakthroughs. You're shaping the future of how we use data to make better decisions and solve complex problems.
That's pretty inspiring. It's not just about coding, it's about making a difference.
It is. And I think that's what ultimately attracts so many talented people to this field. It's not just a job, it's a chance to make a real impact on the world.
Well, on that inspiring note, I think it's time to bring this deep dive to a close. What are your final thoughts for our listeners today?
If you're passionate about data, technology, and making a difference, then the world of AWS data engineering is waiting for you.
It's a challenging, rewarding, and constantly evolving field. And as data continues to shape our world, the opportunities are only going to grow.
So what are you waiting for? Dive in, get your hands dirty, and start building the data-driven future.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of AWS Data Engineers. We'll catch you next time for another adventure in the ever-evolving world of technology.
It really makes you think about just how much data is out there, right?
Yeah, and it's not slowing down anytime soon.
Nope. If anything, it's accelerating.
Exactly, and that brings us back to something we touched on earlier, all those ethical considerations around data.
Right, because it's not just about the technical side anymore. It's about using data responsibly.
Totally, and it seems like AWS data engineers are right at the forefront of this.
They are. They're building systems that are ethically sound from the ground up.
So how does that actually play out in their work? Can you give us some concrete examples?
Sure, think about data anonymization, for instance.
Okay, anonymization, so like protecting people's privacy.
Exactly. Let's say they're working with a data set that has sensitive personal information.
Like names, addresses, social security numbers, that kind of thing.
Right, so they might use techniques to remove or mask those identified details.
But wouldn't that make the data useless for analysis?
Not necessarily. They can do it in a way that preserves the data's usefulness for analysis.
Oh, interesting. So like you're protecting individual privacy without sacrificing the insights you can gain from the data.
That's a great way to put it. And then there's this even more advanced technique called differential privacy.
Differential privacy. Okay, that sounds intense.
It is. It's a way of adding statistical noise to the data.
Noise, like making it messy again.
Not messy, but it makes it much harder to identify individuals while still allowing for accurate analysis at the group level.
Wow, that's pretty mind-blowing, but also really important in this data-driven world.
Absolutely, and those are just a couple of examples. They're also thinking about data governance, which is basically setting up rules and procedures for how data is managed.
So it's like creating a constitution for the data world.
Haha, I like that. But yeah, they're making sure data is handled ethically at every step of the process.
That's really encouraging to hear.
It is. It shows how much this role is evolving beyond just the technical stuff.
Right, they're not just coders, they're guardians of data, making sure it's used for good.
Well said. And it all ties back to that idea of impact. They're not just building systems, they're shaping how we use data to make the world a better place.
That's a powerful thought, and I think it's a perfect note to end on.
I agree. It's been a fascinating journey exploring the world of AWS data engineers.
It really has, and we've learned so much about the complexities, the challenges, but also the incredible impact they have.
To all our listeners out there, if you're even remotely curious about data and technology, I encourage you to learn more about this field.
It's a constantly evolving world, but one thing's for sure, AWS data engineers are at the heart of it all.
Shaping the data-driven future one pipeline at a time.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time for another adventure in the world of tech.